The school was silent now. The echo of slamming lockers and laughter had long faded. Hallways lay empty under flickering fluorescent lights, shadows pooling in corners. Only one figure remained, a man in a faded janitor's uniform, moving slowly, methodically, through the dim corridors. His footsteps were soft, almost swallowed by the vast emptiness. He pushed a heavy cart laden with cleaning supplies, its wheels creaking under the weight. No one noticed him. No one cared. To the students and staff, he was invisible. Just the janitor, the man who cleaned the school at night. His name was Mr. Ellis, but no one called him that anymore. No one called him anything but the janitor. Whispers, jokes, and sideways glances followed him during the day, though few said it aloud. He was part of the background, the overlooked, the disregarded, the man who swept away the mess no one wanted to face. Ellis stopped by a classroom door, paused. The faint glow of a half-lit projector screen bathed the room in a pale blue. He glanced inside, eyes soft but tired. Rows of desks sat empty, chairs pushed in neatly. The silence was heavy. He exhaled slowly, the weight of another day pressing down on him. No one sees me, he thought. Not really. His hands, calloused and steady, began wiping fingerprints from the window. He worked carefully, like the room deserved respect, even if the world didn't give it to him. A soft sigh escaped his lips. In the past, this man had commanded rooms filled with engineers and scientists. His hands had built machines, not just swept floors. His mind had solved problems that few could touch. But that life felt distant now, like a forgotten dream fading with the daylight. Footsteps echoed somewhere far away, and Ellis's eyes flicked toward the distant doorway. He imagined the students rushing past in the morning, laughing, living their lives, never stopping to wonder who cleaned up after them, who kept the school running while they slept. A sharp voice cut through his thoughts, a whisper he'd heard too many times. Why even bother? He's just the janitor. Ellis winced inside but kept moving, steady, invisible. The night was his refuge, but also his cage. No applause greeted his efforts. No thanks. Just quiet work, endless routine. But beneath the surface, something flickered. A stubborn spark of hope that maybe, one day, someone would see past the uniform, past the title, see the man beneath. He stopped before the old trophy case, dusty, forgotten. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, a worn face, eyes lined with years of quiet endurance. One day, he thought, one day they'll know. The empty school breathed around him, dark and still. And as Ellis continued his silent work, the night whispered its secrets, waiting for the moment when invisibility would shatter. The next morning, the halls buzzed with voices, but none were kind. Who even is that guy? One student whispered, eyes flicking toward the janitor as he pushed his cart down the corridor. He's always here after hours, another said, voice low and sharp. Probably just some old has-been. Laughter rippled through the group clustered by the lockers. Ellis moved with quiet purpose, but the stares followed him like shadows. Every glance felt like a needle, sharp and cold. Why is he here? The students seemed to ask without words. What is someone like him doing in this school? Whispers floated through classrooms, curling around desks like smoke. Maybe he lost his job, but he can't do anything important anymore. Just a janitor. Probably never did anything worth mentioning. Even some teachers exchanged curious looks behind his back. A few shook their heads, pity or judgment etched into their features. Ellis heard it all, every word, every half-hidden sneer. But he kept his head down, his hands steady. In the cafeteria, a table of students shifted uncomfortably as he sat down at the far end, the baby-faced boy with the battered janitor's uniform. No one asked him to join. No one made space. The lunchroom grew loud with chatter, but not for him. A girl slid her tray closer to her friend as he approached. Without looking, she stood and left, leaving a clear gap of silence where a seat might have been. Ellis settled on a bench at the edge of the room, cradling his worn jacket close. Invisible, unwanted. His mind flickered back to a different life, one where his ideas mattered, where his voice was heard. But here, in this moment, he was nothing more than a shadow on the wall. Still, beneath the hurt, a quiet flame burned. Let them talk. One day, they'll understand. As the whispers swirled and the sneers lingered, Ellis stood tall, not with arrogance, but with a strength that no words could touch. The world might judge him now, but he had a story they hadn't yet learned to see. And that story was only just beginning. The cold hum of fluorescent lights was replaced, just for a moment, by the bright glow of a laboratory filled with blinking machines and towering blueprints. Ellis stood in the center, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp and alive. His fingers traced the intricate lines of a complex schematic spread across the table. Around him, colleagues exchanged hurried words, charts flickered on screens, and the air buzzed with possibility. "Ellis, we need your input on the thermal design," a voice called. He nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "The heat dissipation needs to be more efficient. If we reroute the coolant here." His mind raced through calculations, possibilities unfolding with the precision of a master craftsman. This was the man he once was, brilliant, respected, a creator of solutions that shaped the future. Then the scene shifted, a late night in a sterile lab, Ellis alone, fatigue heavy in his bones. He stared at the blinking console, hands trembling slightly. The project that had once sparked his fire now felt like a chain tightening around his wrists. "We need to cut costs," the voice of a manager echoed coldly, distant but clear. "Your team's budget is over. Scale back, or we pull the plug." Ellis clenched his jaw. The invention, his dream, the future he had fought for, threatened to vanish in the name of profits. The memory blurred, melting into a sharp contrast. He was now in a cramped apartment, the walls lined with unpaid bills and faded photographs. His hands, once steady and sure, trembled as he folded a crumpled letter. "Dear Mr. Ellis, your contract has been terminated effective immediately." His breath caught. The loss wasn't just the job. It was the identity, the purpose. Back in the present, Ellis wiped a smudge from a glass pane, eyes clouded with the weight of years. What went wrong? A flash of anger, a flicker of regret. He had been a man who built dreams, and now he cleaned corridors no one noticed. But beneath the silence, a quiet battle raged. The fragments of his past, blueprints, experiments, moments of triumph reminded him of what he still carried inside. Not just skills, but resilience. Not just memories, but hope. His fingers brushed the edge of a forgotten trophy case, the glass dusty but intact. A symbol of a life paused, not ended. Ellis inhaled deeply, the cool night air filling his lungs. "I'm still here. And maybe, just maybe, there's still a chance." The past whispered in fragments, but the future waited, waiting for him to step out of the shadows once more. Ellis worked silently beneath the dim glow of the hallway lights, crouched beside the bulky science project left forgotten in a corner of the school gym. His fingers moved with precision, adjusting a loose wire here, tightening a screw there, each motion calm, practiced. The device hummed faintly under his touch, its flickering light steadied, circuits reconnecting like a heart beating anew. He hadn't been asked to fix it. No one knew he was here, quietly repairing what others had abandoned. He didn't expect thanks. His reward was the steady glow of the machine coming back to life. Footsteps echoed behind him, hesitant but curious. A student, a girl, stood frozen at the edge of the gym, clutching her notebook tightly. Her eyes widened when she saw him crouched there, the janitor's uniform smudged, but his movements deliberate, skilled. "You fixed this," she whispered, stepping closer but still cautious. Ellis looked up, eyes meeting hers. For a moment, the usual barrier of silence hung between them. "I saw it was broken," he said simply. "Figured it deserved to work." She nodded slowly, surprise softening into something like respect. "I thought you didn't care about this stuff." He shrugged, the hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Sometimes, people just don't notice who's paying attention." Her gaze lingered on the machine, then back to him. "Why do you do it?" Ellis glanced down, fingers still adjusting a delicate component. "Because someone has to." The weight of his words settled between them like a fragile bridge, connecting two worlds that rarely crossed paths. She swallowed, her usual chatter replaced by quiet understanding. "Thank you," she finally said, voice barely above a breath. Ellis nodded. "No need." The moment stretched, no grand declarations, no applause, just a simple exchange, a student seeing beyond the surface, a janitor silently offering his expertise. As she turned to leave, the girl glanced back once more, a new light in her eyes. Ellis watched her go, the soft hum of the repaired project steady and true beneath the quiet night. In that small, unspoken moment, something shifted, not just in the machine, but in the way they saw each other, through walls built by whispers and assumptions. A connection forged in silence, stronger than any words. And for the first time in a long while, Ellis felt the stirrings of trust. The quiet hum of the school's late afternoon settled into a low murmur as the janitor, Ellis, moved through the halls with his usual steady rhythm. But today, the rhythm was broken. Ms. Ramirez, the science teacher, stood frozen by the doorway to the gym, her eyes fixed on the small device Ellis had repaired earlier that morning. She held a folder tightly to her chest, pages spilling out blueprints, technical drawings, and a crisp resume buried beneath the clutter. A student, the same girl who had witnessed Ellis's quiet work, approached hesitantly. "Ms. Ramirez," she said softly, "I found this inside the device. A note?" The teacher unfolded the paper, and her eyes widened. The note bore Ellis's signature, but more than that, it revealed a story few had expected. "Ellis Harper," she murmured, voice trembling with disbelief. Former lead engineer at Arctech Innovations, one of the top minds in renewable energy. The room seemed to shrink as whispers began to swirl like a rising tide. "Wait, that Ellis?" a voice asked from the hallway. "I thought he was just the janitor, but he fixed the whole project alone." Suddenly, the image of the quiet man who cleaned floors and changed light bulbs transformed. Behind the mop and bucket was a mind that had designed cutting-edge technology, lost not by failure, but by circumstance. Ms. Ramirez stepped out, holding the papers for all to see. He lost his job after a family emergency, struggled to find footing ever since, she explained. But he never stopped caring, never stopped creating. The news spread fast. In the cafeteria, faces shifted from indifference to astonishment. The students who once ignored Ellis now whispered his name with newfound respect. "Why didn't he say anything?" someone asked. Ellis himself sat quietly in a corner, the weight of discovery pressing down. He had hidden behind the janitor's role, protecting a past too complicated to share. Yet, now, the walls he built began to crack. A boy who had mocked him days before approached, eyes hesitant. "I'm sorry," he said, voice rough. "I never knew." Ellis looked up, the hint of a smile breaking through years of silence. "It's okay," he replied softly. "We all have our battles." Ms. Ramirez stood beside him, proud and resolute. "He's not just a janitor," she declared. "He's a reminder that sometimes the brightest talents hide in the shadows." The school buzzed with a new story, not of a fallen man, but of quiet strength. Ellis was no longer invisible. He was a symbol, a lesson that judgment is shallow, and that beneath every uniform, every label, lies a story waiting to be heard. The school buzzed with a new energy, one of curiosity, respect, and quiet admiration. It started small. A tentative knock on the janitor's closet door. A hesitant voice asking, "Mr. Ellis, could you help us with the robotics project?" Ellis looked up from his worn mop, eyes narrowing in surprise. He hadn't expected this. Not from these students, the same ones who once passed him with averted gazes and whispered doubts. Sure," he said, voice low but steady. The next afternoon, Ellis found himself in the cluttered workshop, surrounded by buzzing circuits and tangled wires. Students leaned in, watching his every move as he picked up a soldering iron, fingers steady and sure. His hands moved with practiced ease, reconnecting a fragile joint. "Wow, you really know your stuff," a girl said, eyes wide. "How did you learn all this?" Ellis paused, a flicker of vulnerability in his gaze. "I used to design machines. Big ones." The room fell silent. Then, a ripple of excitement. Over the following weeks, the hesitant curiosity turned to eager collaboration. Ellis wasn't just the janitor anymore. He was a mentor, a guide, someone who could unravel the mysteries of circuits and sensors with a patient smile. "Try adjusting this," he said, handing a wire to a boy struggling with the code. The boy's face lit up. "It worked. Thanks, Mr. Ellis." Ellis smiled, a slow, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, belonging. In the cafeteria, students stopped him to ask questions. In the halls, whispers of admiration followed him like a gentle tide. He was no longer invisible. He was seen. One afternoon, Ms. Ramirez approached him, eyes bright. "The science club wants you to lead the next workshop. They say you inspire them." Ellis looked down, heart pounding. Could he really be that person? The man who cleaned floors, the man who was written off, now a beacon for others? He nodded. "I'll do it." The day of the workshop arrived, the room packed with eager faces. Ellis stood before them, not as a janitor, but as a teacher sharing stories of failure and triumph, lessons from a life rebuilt. "Sometimes," he said softly, "the world overlooks you. But that doesn't mean you're invisible. It means you have to shine even brighter." Hands shot up, questions pouring in. Laughter bubbled, connections formed. Ellis caught the eyes of a boy who had once mocked him. Now, the boy smiled, genuine respect shining through. In that moment, Ellis understood. Change wasn't just about being seen. It was about breaking barriers, building bridges, and proving, beyond doubt, that a second chance can light the darkest paths. The auditorium lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the packed room. Rows of students, teachers, and parents sat with expectant eyes, the air thick with anticipation. On stage stood Ellis, once just the janitor, now the heart of the school's story. His hands, calloused from years of cleaning floors, trembled slightly as he approached the microphone. The spotlight caught the gleam in his eyes, a mix of disbelief, gratitude, and quiet pride. "Thank you," he began, voice steady but soft. "I never imagined standing here like this." He glanced out over the sea of faces, some familiar, some new, all looking at him with respect. "For years, I thought my story was over, that my talents didn't matter anymore." A murmur rippled through the crowd. But this school, these kids, they showed me something different. They reminded me that no matter where you start, you can always find your way. Ellis's gaze found a cluster of younger students near the front, their eyes wide with admiration. A little girl clutched her notebook as if she was already dreaming of inventions and breakthroughs. "You don't have to be perfect," he said, voice rising with emotion. "You just have to keep trying. Keep believing." Applause erupted, filling the auditorium with thunderous cheers. Ellis took a deep breath, letting the moment wash over him. Ms. Ramirez stepped forward, her smile radiant. "Ellis has been more than a janitor here. He's been a mentor, a teacher, and an inspiration." His story reminds us all that heroes come in many forms. Ellis's eyes welled with tears. He thought of the nights spent cleaning alone, the whispered doubts, the invisible weight of a hidden past. But now, standing bathed in applause, he felt seen, not just as a man with a mop, but as a symbol of hope, a beacon for anyone who has ever been overlooked. Later, as the crowd dispersed, students approached him, shy smiles, words of thanks, questions about his journey. Ellis answered each with patience and warmth, knowing this was only the beginning. One boy, the same who once mocked him, held out a notebook. "Will you help me with my science project?" Ellis grinned. "I'd like that." Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the school. Inside, a new chapter had begun. Ellis Harper, janitor, engineer, hero, had found his place. And the school would never forget the man who cleaned its halls by night but lit its future by day.